The year was 1066. It was a time of great change for England. A man from Normandy in France had just won a huge battle. His name was William, and after the Battle of Hastings, he became known as William the Conqueror. He was now the King of England. But winning a battle is one thing, controlling a whole country is another. The English people were not happy about their new French-speaking king. They were angry and ready to fight back. William knew he had a very big problem on his hands. He needed to show everyone that he was in charge and that he was here to stay. His new kingdom was full of danger and rebellion. William's biggest challenge was London. London was already the most important city in England. It was rich, it was powerful, and its people were proud. They did not want a foreign king ruling over them. After the battle, William marched his army towards the city, but the Londoners shut their gates. They refused to let him in. William knew he couldn't just leave them to it. To control England, he had to control London. So he did something very clever. He didn't attack the city directly. Instead, he marched his army around it, burning farms and villages. He was showing the Londoners that he could cut off their food and supplies. It was a scary message, and it worked. Faced with starvation, the important men of London finally came out and surrendered. They accepted William as their king. But William was a military man, and he knew this was not the end of the story. The people of London might have surrendered, but their hearts were still against him. They could rise up at any moment. He needed a way to watch over them, to intimidate them, and to protect himself and his followers from any sudden attack. He needed a permanent solution, a physical reminder of his power that would loom over the city day and night. This was the moment when the idea for a great fortress in London began. This need for control led to one of the most ambitious building projects England had ever seen. William decided to build a series of castles all across his new kingdom. These were not the fairy tale castles with fluttering flags you might imagine. They were grim, strong, military bases. They were designed to dominate the local population and provide a safe place for Norman soldiers. And in London, the most important city of all, he planned to build the biggest and best castle yet. This castle would become the Tower of London, and its heart would be a magnificent, terrifying stone keep, the White Tower. It was to be the ultimate symbol of his conquest. So William needed a castle in London, but where exactly should he build it? The location was incredibly important. A castle needs to be in a place where it can defend and also be defended. William, being a brilliant military strategist, chose his spot with great care. He looked at the map of London and saw the perfect place. It was on the east side of the city, right next to the River Thames. This position gave him control over the river, which was the main highway for trade and transport in and out of London. Anyone coming up the river would have to pass right under the shadow of his new fortress. The spot he chose also had another brilliant advantage. It was right next to the old Roman city wall. The Romans had built a huge, strong wall around their city of Londinium hundreds of years before. Parts of this wall were still standing, strong and tall. William was a practical man. Why build a whole new wall when you can use an old one? He decided to incorporate the Roman wall into his castle's defenses. The new castle would use the old Roman wall for its eastern and southern sides. This saved time, it saved money, and it meant his fortress was strong from the very beginning. This clever use of the old Roman walls shows us how the Normans thought. They were not just destroying the old England, they were building on top of it, quite literally. They were taking what was already there and making it their own. The castle was positioned to protect the city from invaders coming up the river, but it was also positioned to control the city itself. Its gates and towers faced the city, a constant reminder to the people of London about who was now in charge. It was a message written in stone. I am your king, and I am watching you. The first castle built on the site was not the great stone tower we see today. It was probably a quicker, simpler structure made of wood and earth, a Motte and Bailey castle. This could be built fast to give William's soldiers immediate protection, but William had much grander plans. A wooden castle could be burned down. He wanted something permanent, something that would last for centuries and strike fear into the hearts of his enemies. He wanted a great tower of stone, bigger and stronger than anything the English had ever seen before. And so the work on what we now call the White Tower began. Building such a massive stone tower required a very special person to be in charge. You couldn't just ask any builder to do it. This was a royal project of immense importance. The man William the Conqueror chose for this job was a monk named Gundulf. This might seem like a strange choice. A monk building a military fortress? But Gundulf was no ordinary monk. He was from Normandy and was known for being a brilliant administrator and a very talented architect. He was a man who knew how to get things done, and William trusted him completely. He was later made the Bishop of Rochester. Gundulf's job was enormous. He was like the project manager of a massive construction site. He had to organize hundreds of workers, from skilled stonemasons to simple laborers. He had to arrange for all the materials to be brought to the site. This included tons and tons of stone, timber for the floors and roof, and lime to make the mortar that would hold it all together. It was a logistical nightmare, but Gundulf was the perfect man for it. He was known for his attention to detail and his ability to manage huge and complex projects. The White Tower is a testament to his incredible skill. We believe the construction of the White Tower happened in two main phases. The first phase started around the year 1078. During this time, the lower parts of the tower were built. The stone used for this first part was mostly a type of local stone called Kentish ragstone. However, a problem arose. England and Normandy went to war, which made it very difficult to get the most important building material, a beautiful creamy white limestone from Caen in Normandy. This special stone was needed for the corners of the building and the details around the windows. The war likely caused the building work to pause for a while. When work started again, in the second phase, things had changed. The fine cane stone was available again, and you can see it used in the upper parts of the tower. This change in stone is one of the clues that tells historians about the two phases of building. Gundulf oversaw this entire process, ensuring that the tower was built to the highest possible standard. It was built to last, using the best materials and the most advanced building techniques of the day. The result was a masterpiece of Norman engineering, a tower so strong that it still stands proudly in the center of London almost 1,000 years later. If you look at the White Tower from the outside, it looks like a simple, strong box, but inside, it is much more complex. It was designed to be both a fortress and a palace. It was a safe place for the king and his most important followers to live, especially if the city of London ever rose up in rebellion. The tower is divided into several floors. The entrance was on the first floor, not the ground floor. This was a clever defensive feature. To get in, you had to climb a wooden staircase, which could easily be removed or destroyed if the castle was attacked, leaving the attackers stuck outside. Each floor was divided into 3 main rooms. We don't know for sure exactly what each room was used for, as the Normans didn't leave behind any floor plans telling us the king slept here, but we can make some very good guesses. The basement was probably used for storage, a place to keep food, water, and perhaps even prisoners. The main floors above would have been the living quarters. There would have been a great hall for feasting and holding court, private chambers for the king and his family, and rooms for important nobles and officials. Life inside would have been dark and probably quite smoky. The Normans included some surprisingly modern features in their design. For a start, they built fireplaces into the stone walls. This might seem normal to us, but it was a new and clever idea for the time. It meant the rooms could be heated properly, making life inside the cold stone tower much more comfortable. Another clever feature was the garderobe. This was the Norman word for a toilet. They were basically small rooms built into the thickness of the outer walls, with a chute that went straight down the outside of the tower. It was a simple but effective way of dealing with sanitation. The different floors were connected by spiral staircases built into the corners of the tower. These staircases were another defensive feature. They were built to spiral clockwise. This meant that a right-handed defender coming down the stairs had plenty of room to swing his sword, but a right-handed attacker coming up the stairs would find his sword arm trapped against the central pillar. It's a small detail, but it shows how every part of the White Tower was designed with defense and security in mind. It was a machine for living, but also a machine for war. Tucked away on the second floor of this mighty military fortress is something quite unexpected and beautiful, a chapel. This is the Chapel of St. John the Evangelist. It is one of the most perfect and best preserved examples of Norman church architecture in all of England. Walking into it feels like stepping back in time 900 years. It is a calm, peaceful space, a world away from the military purpose of the rest of the building. The chapel was for the king and the royal family to pray in. It was their private place of worship, a symbol of their piety and their connection to God. The design of the chapel is simply stunning. It has a high, rounded ceiling called a barrel vault, which was a very advanced piece of architecture for the 11th century. The chapel is surrounded by a walkway on the upper level called a gallery, which looks down onto the main space below. The whole room is built from that beautiful pale sandstone, which gives it a light and airy feel, even though it's hidden deep inside a massive stone tower. The columns are thick and round, and the arches are perfectly curved. It is a masterpiece of simple, powerful, and elegant design. The chapel's survival is truly remarkable. While the rest of the White Tower's interior has been changed many times over the centuries, the Chapel of St. John has remained almost exactly as the Norman builders left it. For a while, during the 16th century, it was used to store government records, and all the documents probably helped to protect this stonework. But today, it has been restored to its original purpose as a chapel. Standing inside, you can almost hear the echoes of Norman chants and prayers. It is a deeply spiritual place. The presence of such a beautiful and sophisticated chapel inside a military stronghold tells us a lot about the Normans. It shows that they were not just brutal warriors. They were also deeply religious people who valued art and architecture. For William the Conqueror, the chapel was just as important as the thick walls and the high towers. It was a way of showing that his power did not just come from his army, but that it was also given to him by God. The chapel was the spiritual heart of the White Tower, its jewel in the crown. The White Tower was much more than just a clever defensive building. It was a statement. It was a giant symbol of Norman power, designed to dominate the London skyline and the minds of the English people. Imagine you were an Anglo-Saxon Londoner in the late 11th century. You had probably only ever lived in a wooden house. The biggest buildings you knew were wooden churches. Then, suddenly this gigantic monster of a building begins to rise up on the edge of your city. It was taller, stronger, and more impressive than anything you had ever seen before. It must have been terrifying and awe-inspiring at the same time. The choice of materials was also part of this message. The main structure was built from rugged Kentish ragstone, but the details were what really made it stand out. William imported huge quantities of beautiful, creamy white limestone all the way from his homeland in Normandy. This stone, known as cornstone, was used for the corners of the building, the quoins, and for the window surrounds. It gave the tower a sharp, clean, and elegant look. It was also a way of showing off. It said, "I am so rich and powerful that I can afford to ship the very best stone across the sea to build my fortress." The tower was originally whitewashed, which means it was painted with a lime-based paint. This is why it is called the White Tower. This would have made it shine brightly in the sun, making it visible for miles around. It would have looked like a ghostly gleaming fortress, a stark contrast to the wooden buildings of the city. The whitewash had a practical purpose. It helped to protect the stone, but its main purpose was symbolic. It made the tower look clean, pure, and almost heavenly, a divine fortress for a king chosen by God. It was a brilliant piece of political propaganda written in stone and paint. Everything about the White Tower was designed to impress and intimidate. Its height, its strength, its clean white finish, and its sophisticated design all sent a clear message to the people of England. The message was that the Normans were here to stay. They were not just temporary invaders, they were the new masters. They had the skill, the wealth, and the power to build on a scale that the English could only dream of. The White Tower was the ultimate expression of the Norman conquest, a permanent reminder of who was now in charge of the kingdom. The White Tower has stood for over 900 years, and it has not stood still. Over the centuries, it has been a royal palace, a formidable fortress, a prison for famous figures like Anne Boleyn and Sir Walter Raleigh, and even a zoo. The Tower of London complex grew around it, with more walls, more towers, and more buildings being added by later kings and queens. But the White Tower has always remained the heart of the complex, its oldest and most important building. Its purpose changed with the times, but its presence remained constant. Through the centuries, the tower has undergone changes. Windows have been made larger to let in more light, and the original roof has been replaced. For a long time, it was used to store the king's armor and weapons, becoming the nation's first great arsenal. It also housed the royal mint, where the country's coins were made. It has been a place of power, a place of fear, and a place of safekeeping. Its story is the story of London and of England, reflecting the changing fortunes of the nation. It has witnessed coronations, rebellions, executions, and celebrations. Today, the White Tower is one of the world's most famous historic buildings and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Millions of visitors from all over the globe come to see it every year. They walk up the same spiral staircases that Norman knights once climbed. They stand in the great rooms where kings held court, and they marvel at the simple beauty of the Chapel of St. John. Inside, you can see the magnificent Royal Armories collection, with suits of armor belonging to kings like Henry VIII. The tower is no longer a tool of oppression, but a gateway to understanding the past. The legacy of William the Conqueror's great stone keep is immense. It set a new standard for castle building in England and became the model for countless other fortresses across the country. But more than that, it has become an iconic symbol of London itself. It stands as a powerful link to our Norman past and a testament to the skill of its builders, like Gundulf of Rochester. It began its life as a symbol of foreign conquest and fear. But over the centuries, it has been absorbed into the fabric of the city. The White Tower is not just a piece of history, it is a living part of London's story.